Welcome to another team selection video, this time ahead of Double Gameweek 33. I'd be very curious to see your thoughts because I've got different avenues in terms of my transfer plans. One with Kane and one without him, and it also involves Salah, which is going to be very interesting. So very curious to see your thoughts. I'm going to recap on how Gameweek 32 went and then talk about my lineup in 33, including my captain. So let's get straight into it. In Gameweek 32, the first time since Gameweek 15 that we didn't have a double or blank, I scored 78 points courtesy of Son as my captain, and also Rafinha and Kulusevski. The rest was pretty hit and miss, especially my forward line. Once again, what a surprise. Doherty got injured very early on, and it looks like he's going to be out for the rest of the season, so he's pretty much a sell, as I talked about in my transfer tips video. If you haven't already, check that out. Ramsdale very disappointing with only 1 point, conceding twice to Brighton, and Jose Sol's on my bench, just a kind of net point difference of 2 there that I missed out on. And as for double Liverpool defence, a bit underwhelming, but they were facing City after all. Robertson with 0, Trent with the assist, and he got 4 points. Reece James has been a woeful signing since I got him in around Gameweek 31. As for Saka, I don't really blame him too much. Arsenal have just been awful, but I still think he's a good option in the midfield. Salah with the assist, and a lot of people are still getting rid of him, and to be fair, I can understand it. I've talked about it in other videos and streams as well. Rafinha though, double-digit return. I think I jinxed him, as I said in my last video, because I said he never gets those double-digit returns, and there we go. A great way to depart from our teams. He's blanking in Gameweek 33. He does have a double in 36, but it's against Chelsea and Arsenal, and Leeds are in good form, but I think there's a really good case to sell him. He also faces Manchester City in Gameweek 35. Heung-min Son though, I was so close to getting rid of him to get Harry Kane up front, and if I did that, I would have been in the mud and probably in a much worse position. So Son was looking very off form a few weeks ago, but class is permanent, and Son has just been the absolute difference maker for Spurs in the last few game weeks. 3 double-digit returns in a row. He's been absolutely insane. I actually don't expect him to do that well against Brighton, and I'll talk about that very soon. Kulusevski with 12 points. I can't really ask too much more. He's been the best January signing. And Weghorst, he has been another woeful signing. So basically the transfers I made in Gameweek 31, while they did make sense, have ultimately been very disappointing. And Tierney is obviously out for the rest of the season as well, so my defence is kind of not too good. Only the Liverpool fullbacks have been good. If Reece James starts getting those consistent minutes, which to be fair is very likely, especially with Chelsea crashing out of the Champions League, then he could be a good signing in the end. Cancelo is the big missing piece in my defence, and also my forward line is awful. And to be fair, Kane is the only consistent player, but I mean, you can't have everyone, unfortunately. You can't have Salah, Son and Kane, and also a lot of premiums at the back. So I have to make sacrifices in order to achieve that. And yeah, I need to make some changes all across the field, but especially in my defence and my forward line. And to be fair, my midfield is actually pretty solid, but I'm going to talk about my transfer plans now, and it does involve a move in the midfield, as well as possibly a defender or striker. So I'm going to talk about that very soon. Let me show you how my team lines up first though, without any transfers. Due to the sheer number of injuries, especially to my back line, I now only have 11 players available. Otherwise, I would have had a few benching headaches. For example, Reece James could have dropped to the bench for Kieran Tierney, and Doherty could have come in for Broja or something like that. But now my starting 11 speaks for itself. Ramsdale's in goal. He's been one of the best goalkeepers all season, but you have to say, over the last 6 to 8 game weeks, he hasn't been that good. Not many clean sheets, not many save points or bonus. So he's been very, very underwhelming. And Reece James is another one who, to be fair, I'll probably stick with him. He could have a double in 34 or 35 should Chelsea beat Crystal Palace in the FA Cup semi-final. That match against Manchester United would then fall under one of those game weeks. And I think Reece James is still a good option in the long term, but I need him to actually start some games. Robertson and Trent also don't have a double. So pretty much my entire back line, apart from Ramsdale in goal, don't have a double, so maybe a signing or 2 there could help change things. Tierney would have been my double gameweek player, but of course he is injured for the rest of the season, just like fellow fullback Doherty. As for my midfield, I do like Saka, to be fair, and even on a free hit I would consider him and maybe even bring him in. As I talked about in my best free hit team video, Saka actually features in that team, so check that out. And then we have Salah. He hasn't been in the greatest of form, and he did pick up a little knock, I think, during the Champions League. That's what Klopp talked about. Same with Diego Jota. But ultimately, I still think Salah's a great option against United. Would I captain him? Maybe. From the players I've available, yes, because I don't have any alternatives apart from possibly Saka, but I'd rather get in a double gameweek player and captain them instead, if I'm being completely honest. Heung-min Son is my vice-captain, but I don't think he's going to outscore Kane this time round, because despite how good his home record is, he's never scored against Brighton, and if you remember, just a few weeks back in Double Gameweek 29, Son faced Brighton, and it was Kane getting all the points, even kicked that Coca-Cola bottle. Well done, Harry. But Heung-min Son basically blanked once again, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case this time round, but does that mean we should sell Son? No, not really. If you can afford it, try to have Son and Kane. That should be a really good boost up until the end of the season. And even if it means triple Spurs attack with Kulusevski, I think it's ultimately worth it. Speaking of the Swede, he's been great as well, and I'm happy to keep him. Maybe it's not going to be too many points for the Spurs players this time round. I think they will beat Brighton, but maybe not as comprehensively as we would have first thought. But let's wait and see. Football's a funny game. Anything can happen. I've got double Southampton forwards, Broja and Adams, against Arsenal and Burnley. Not a bad double, and Arsenal in awful form, but Southampton have lost 6 games in a row at the St Mary's. I probably expect them to change that once they face Arsenal, but let's wait and see. I think Adams and Broja are decent. Would I have them on a free hit? I'd consider Adams possibly, but even then I probably wouldn't. And I talked about this obviously once again in the best free hit team video. Weghorst with a double, I definitely would not consider him. And he was actually originally on my bench for the likes of Doherty and Tierney before the injuries happened to them. So this is how I'm lining up without transfers. It's not the worst, but I think a free hit would improve this considerably. But I have 2 free transfers and I could do a lot with that. And even with a -4 or a -8, I think I could kind of match the best free hit team for the most part. So now let's talk about the transfer plans. And once again, I encourage you to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Which team is better? I'd highly recommend using FPL.team. It's a great resource. There's also many other websites for FPL, such as livefpl.net, where you can do these transfer planning. You have a good visualization of how your team looks for each single game week. And on the left-hand side, we have basically the Salah draft and no Harry Kane. But on the right, it's Salah making way for the likes of Harry Kane. So let me just try to break this down as simply as possible. On the left-hand side would be 2 free transfers, and this is what I'm leaning more towards at the moment. I would get Maddison in for Rafinha, and then I'd get Fabian Schär in for Kieran Tierney. But on the right-hand side, I would take a -4 hit. I would get rid of Doherty for Schär. Why would I get rid of Doherty and not Tierney when he's more expensive? Well, because I already have triple Spurs players, and if I kept Doherty and then got Harry Kane in, well, that wouldn't be possible, to be quite frank. And then Maddison would also come in for Rafinha, and the final transfer would be Harry Kane for Weghorst. Now, I really like this structurally, having Harry Kane up front, because I don't like the rest of the forwards. The problem is, I don't think it's worth getting rid of Salah for a hit, especially this game week against Manchester United. And also, I could just make similar moves, Maddison and Schär in for free, keep Salah, and I also like the Salah captaincy in Game Week 34 against Everton. So I'm going to kind of break it down week by week, kind of roughly. As you can see, also, a really important thing to consider is who you have on your bench. So with 2 free transfers, I'd probably have Weghorst on my bench as well as Reece James. So I have quite a bit of squad depth with these moves, and it's only 2 free transfers. However, if I get Harry Kane in for a -4, my bench would be a bit weaker for the time being. Reece James would be there, but you could argue the starting 11 is slightly better, at least this game week. And also, just ignore the captaincy on the right-hand side. It would be Maddison still, and then Harry Kane would be the vice-captain. But let me know, what do you prefer? At least for Game Week 33, would you prefer the 2 free transfers or the -4 on the right-hand side? I put a poll out on the YouTube channel, and most of you went with the 2 free transfers, which is quite understandable. Just a quick correction to what I said. If I decide to get Harry Kane in and sell Salah, Salah's the one who's going to make way for Maddison, and I would keep Rafinha. And also, something that is very interesting, all of these Leicester players that we're thinking of getting into our teams are all starting in the Europa Conference League tonight. So is Maddison, for example, going to play both games? That is definitely a debate to be had. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below about that. The same goes for Harvey Barnes and all these defenders. Kasper Schmeichel's the only one you know that's going to start every single game. But as for the outfield players, there is a degree of uncertainty. So that will be very interesting. But I still think Maddison is up there amongst the very best captaincy options. I said this in my best free hit team video as well, where I would either captain Bruno Fernandes or James Maddison. It's very important to look beyond the upcoming game week and try to think long term, especially when we're so close to the end of the season and you don't have many chips left like myself. I only have the free hit left, which I'm looking to use in Double Gameweek 37. So on both occasions, whether I keep Salah or get Harry Kane in for a -4 in Game Week 33, I would also look to do something like this. Get Joao Cancelo in for a -4 and either Gelhardt or Mateta. I wouldn't be able to afford Mateta if I keep Salah, but if I get Harry Kane in for a -4, I would be able to get Mateta, and my squad depth would actually look better in Game Week 34 with the Harry Kane move, despite the fact that in Game Week 33 it would look better with the Mohamed Salah, keeping him and making 2 free transfers instead. So it's a bit, evenly matched, I would say. Both sets of moves have logic and they're both pretty solid. Game week 35, I'd probably roll the transfer, but things can change. Chelsea could have a double against Manchester United in game week 34 or 35, so I might get some of their players instead, like Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, maybe Antonio Rudiger. So it's not going to be plain sailing. You have to adapt your plans accordingly. But the reason why I like getting Harry Kane in, even if it's at the expense of Mohamed Salah, is because of Game Week 36. So let me just show you this. Both teams will look very solid in Double Game Week 36 without even needing to make too many transfers. So that's why I'm not looking to use the free hit in this game week. But look at the left-hand side with Mohamed Salah being kept. I would have no good striker really. Gelhardt with a double game week, but he's facing Arsenal and Chelsea. Adams and Broja are facing Brentford, so I would need to make some transfers. I would have 2 free transfers to be fair on both occasions, but if you're looking at it, having Harry Kane in with a double, I'd even be happy to captain him because that fixture against Arsenal, he could really produce the goods and be the difference maker in the North London derby as he has been over the years. So you look at it, and despite how good the team looks with Salah on the left, I just don't like the forward line, and I think a change is necessary. I need a reliable striker, even if it's someone like Tony with a single game week or Harry Kane with that double. So that's my kind of dilemma. I would love to have Salah, Son and Kane, but that would mean maybe getting rid of Trent Alexander-Arnold or Robertson and making a few downgrades elsewhere. So that is my predicament. Game week 37 doesn't really matter too much because I'd probably free hit, and as you can see on the left-hand side, Adams and Broja face Liverpool at home, whilst Gelhardt face Brighton. So the forward line is a really big problem if I keep Salah and I don't get Harry Kane in. So that's the reason why I am considering the Harry Kane move, despite the fact that I don't think it's worth a -4 this week. You also have to think long term, and ultimately the forwards on the left hand side with Salah being kept is awful, and I need to make some transfers. Maybe Mateta can come in, Ivan Toney, but it's still not looking too good. Game week 38, it still looks pretty decent on both occasions, but you compare Che Adams to the likes of Harry Kane, and there's a clear difference between the two. And apart from that, the midfield, the defence, and even the goalkeeper look pretty solid. And I think those of you that have the wildcard still are in a very good position because you can just change everything that you want. You could even have a draft with Salah, Son and Kane while still retaining those Liverpool fullbacks, maybe Cancelo as well. And you can have a very good squad until the end of the season. But it's a very, very tricky one for me. I need to decide whether I take that -4 and take the plunge, go without Salah for the rest of the season and have a better forward line as a result. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. We also have a Discord server. The link is in the description below. We talk about F1 Fantasy, UCL Fantasy, as well as FPL. And you can also join the channel as a channel member, as well as a Patreon to support the channel even further and get exclusive early access to all my videos, as well as many other perks. So check that out. All the very best of luck for Double Game Week 33, as well as the rest of the season. The same goes for UCL Fantasy and F1 Fantasy if you play those games as well. So take care, enjoy the football, and I'll see you next time.